Hey everyone, I hope you had a wonderful weekend. For me, it was a long weekend. I'm still in school, but it was a long weekend because Memorial Day. And thank you to everyone who served. We celebrated Memorial Day, and my finals are coming up soon. So, on Saturday I was studying for my history final, and I was wanted to research about the 1984 presidential election, so I could be ready for it when it's on my final. So I'm studying for it, and then eventually it turns into doom scrolling. It turns into me being on my phone for hours, and after those hours, eventually I learn how to survive a bear attack, how to change my tires on my car, and how to make Korean pancakes at 2 a.m. And eventually my phone starts judging me because I don't realize what time it is, and I see the clock's at 2 a.m. and the phone gives me a notification of the screen time thing. You've been on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok for like 3 hours now, and that was a temptation for me. And for a lot of you, doom scrolling is a temptation too. But we have to recognize how it starts and how dangerous it is. Temptation, it starts small. The most dangerous things for you oftentimes don't even look dangerous, and they're small. But here's the thing. Temptation, when it comes to you, it doesn't come at you whole. It doesn't take you whole. But instead, it starts with one little step at a time. And we can see that in 2 Samuel chapter 11. That's where David has his affair with Bathsheba. And for those who don't know the story or the context to it, I'll explain it to you right now. Prior to this chapter, we read about David being in a battle and winning that battle. And he's meant to pursue that enemy and destroy them. But instead, when it's springtime, where all the kings are usually out fighting with their men, instead, he relaxed in his palace and sent one of his generals to go do his work for him, to go destroy the enemy for him. And he was just sitting there, relaxing in his palace. And he didn't know at the time, but that was one small step towards temptation, towards sin. That was one temptation for him. Because oftentimes, for us, temptation starts in laziness. Laziness breeds sin. Because David, he was just relaxing. He wasn't doing what he meant to do. He wasn't where he should have been. He wasn't doing his responsibilities. And in verse 2, we read about him pacing on his roof, on the roof of his palace. And the Hebrew word for pacing, it suggests that he was uneasy because he wasn't where God wanted him to be, which was with his men fighting. He wasn't doing what his job was. And eventually, because he was pacing on his palace roof, he sees this woman named Bathsheba bathing. Eventually, he keeps looking. He's instead of letting go of the thought, he sits on it. He sits and dwells, and eventually he acts on it. He commits adultery. Bathsheba, she was a married woman. She was married to one of his closest, most faithful soldiers. His name was Uriah. And eventually, to keep this adultery hidden, David ends up murdering Uriah, having him killed, just to keep this all a secret. What started out as laziness soon turned into murder. That's how quickly sin can transform and destroy. That's the same way for us. Temptation starts with one small yes. Satan, when he presents a temptation, a sin to us, it doesn't come to us as whole. It doesn't take us as whole. It doesn't destroy us or consume us as whole. But instead, it starts with one small yes. Satan doesn't present a chain, but he presents a link, a choice. And through that choice, he presents this. Could be doom scrolling. Oh, just one more video. Oh, I just got to see this thing in 1 minute. 1 minute turned to 5 minutes, then 30 minutes, then 4 hours. Maybe it could be going to the party you shouldn't have gone to. It could be running to the relationship you shouldn't be in. Oh, just one more drink, one more shot, just one more smoke. Starts with a small yes. And eventually, you run to it again. And then it doesn't satisfy you. So you do it more severely. Do it more often. Try hiding it. You get addicted to it. And then it builds up more. And eventually you have a full chain. That's what temptation causes. That's what sin causes. It causes a full chain. And through this chain, you become enslaved to this addiction, to this sin. And you are forced to carry this burden. You are forced to carry this heavy burden through that temptation. And here's the scary thing. This becomes our identity. This becomes all we know. This becomes natural to us. It becomes so natural to us. We don't even realize we're in this bondage, this sin. We don't even realize we're carrying this weight. And only two things happen through this one. The first thing that happens is the one that happens the most. The chain breaks you. It eventually leads to your death or something worse. It hurts other people. Sin doesn't just affect you, but it affects your relationships. It affects all the things around you. Either that, or it's the second option that happens. And it doesn't have to be the first one. It becomes you breaking the chain. And you know, you're not breaking the chain by your own willpower. But you're breaking the chain using the power of the one who can. Because you have a chain breaker that's just waiting for you to come home. To let go of that sin and instead run to him. That's the way Scripture tells us to combat temptation. It's by fleeing from it. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 22 says this. Flee youthful passions, but pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with all those who call upon the Lord with a good heart, with a pure heart. You combat temptation by fleeing from it, by letting it go, because it's easier to stop the sin, the chain, when it's one link, compared to when it's a full chain, when it's a full burden. It's easier to stop it's easier to stop an ember than to stop a forest fire. Crush it when it's an ember. That's how you face and combat temptation. And you crush the ember by running to Jesus and replacing it with truth. We see this comparison about how man fails temptation, but Jesus succeeds. We're supposed to reflect how Jesus responded to temptation instead of relying on ourselves to do it. Because we don't face it by our own willpower, because we'll lose every time. David, he had everything he needed. He was in his palace. He had everything, and he still failed. He still sinned. He still broke to the temptation. But Jesus, when he was tempted, we read in the Gospels, when he was tempted, he had nothing but a desert and rocks, nothing around him. instead, when he was tempted, instead of running to temptation, actually thinking about it, faced it, he instead replaced it with truth. That's how you face temptation. Replace it with truth and flee from it. That's how Joseph combated his temptation. He fled from it. And, this fleeing, it isn't a sign of weakness. Because you're not just running from something, but you're running to someone. You're running to Jesus, the chain breaker. What if you are trapped in this chain? What if the chain is built? It isn't too late for you. It isn't too late for you to break this chain. Because this chain, this weight, this burden, it may be all that you know. It may be your identity. It may be natural to you. This may be what you identify by. This may be what you're hiding. This may be what Satan and the world calls you by. Satan and the world, they call you by your sin. But Jesus calls you by your name, by who you are. It isn't late. It isn't too late to come home and break the chain. We combat temptation by running to Jesus.